So we've got a great session for you today. We're joined by Lana Gibson from Lana Analytics to talk about how measuring the performance of our digital products is changing in the age of AI summaries. So many people are getting their information that they're looking for without ever reaching our websites. So Lana runs Lana Analytics, which helps large organizations use digital data to help understand audience needs. She's particularly interested in the moment at AI-driven discovery and how this is changing content performance measurement and user behavior. I know this question has come up a lot in our previous meetup, so we're really excited to have Lana today to talk to us about this. Please join me in welcoming Lana. Welcome, Lana.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be back with the Wellington Content Strategy Group. I'm seeing some familiar names, which is really nice. And yes, it is. It's an exciting space. It's, of course, so fast changing that it's hard to keep up. I know a lot of people are struggling to understand how to measure their performance now. Um, and the picture is still a bit blurry, but I'm excited to talk you through what we can see and give you some practical tips on how we can measure things now. So at Lanalytics, we specialize in large content-driven sites and we help organizations use data to improve digital decision making. So I'll give you some examples of these. But right now I will share my screen. And we'll just get it into the presentation mode. So is that looking good? Great. Okay. So today we're going to cover how AI is changing how people find content, AI optimization, myths versus reality. We've got a traffic increase despite kind of declining website traffic from Tohu Whenua, and we'll look at how they have some resilient content. Then I'll talk about how large organizations should measure now. And we'll close with what's next for digital performance analytics. So I'll keep it relatively short as this is an emerging space. And unsurprisingly, some clients aren't keen to share their case studies yet. So I've got some older case studies to demonstrate helpful ways to approach your performance data now. And there will be time for questions at the end, which I'll do my best to answer. So yes, I think a lot of you have probably seen your website traffic declining, and I know that can be quite an unnerving thing. So, and we are also losing visibility into digital performance, but it's not because we're doing something wrong. It's because behaviors are changing. People are getting answers directly from AI tools. They're interacting with content on social platforms, and they're bypassing websites altogether. So if your data feels harder to interpret lately, you're not alone. We don't yet have reliable data for LLMs, despite what some tools claim. And even when we do, it won't give us the complete picture. But let's just go into, so I know there's a lot of kind of AI optimization tips out there and a lot of people claiming tools and people claiming that they have the kind of secret science to optimizing and suggesting we do all these kind of far out things to our websites. And there's a lot of differing guidance in this space and people claiming they can get you better visibility. But Google has just released official guidance on optimizing for AI, and the message is clear. Apply foundational SEO best practices to generative AI search. So to kind of counter all the snake oil, they've come out and said you just need to keep doing your search engine optimization kind of techniques to do well for AI as well. And I'd really recommend you have a look at this guidance. It's quite succinct and well written, but basically it says, Google says create content that's unique, helpful, and well organized. Add high quality images and audio. Don't be spammy, just like SEO, and be careful when using AI to create content. Now, just a side note, I know a lot of you content people might be a little bit frustrated with all the AI slop around. And I don't know if you've seen, but Lily Ray, who's a New York SEO and AEO or AI optimization expert, who's also a DJ, pretty cool. She found that over 220 websites that used AI generated content experienced a brief increase in traffic followed by a steep drop. So it's called the Rank and Tank Playbook. It's an AI mountain of steep decline. So, if you're just producing AI generated content, Google will eventually pick it up and start to, not send people to you anymore. And then we've got build and maintain a clear technical structure. And there's more on this in the guidance. It's about technical SEO, which is important to follow. Optimize local business and e-commerce sites. Now, interestingly enough, this is kind of your Google business profile, and it's creating your local signals, strong local signals. And interestingly enough, I just supported a client to get a big increase in search visibility by optimizing their Google business profile. So it's not something to ignore. And then explore agentic experiences. Of course, this is coming up and what we should be looking into. So those are Google's guidance. And I just wanted to look at a website now as a case study, a recent case study. Now, this isn't an AI success story. AI traffic remains tiny, like most websites. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of traffic coming from AI engines yet, and it's under 5% in most websites. I look at most of it's under one. Most websites are under 1%. But tohu whenua increased, traffic increased despite industry concerns about declining traffic. So they've actually been gaining traffic in this difficult environment. And many of the things that make this website useful to visitors also make it useful to AI systems. And later we'll see these strengths coming through in the performance data. So I just wanted to give you this kind of little case study to show you kind of how these signals could be coming through in your performance data as well. So Tohu Whenua is a collaborative visitor program from Department of Conservation and Heritage New Zealand to promote Aotearoa heritage and historical sites. So the site says, welcome to your free itinerary to places to visit and explore history where it happened. So it's a very engaging website. And I worked with Carmel Rowden, who does an excellent job working on Tohu Whenua. And while I can't take credit for their traffic increase, I'd like to point out their strengths when it comes to resilient content. So content is helpful and answers natural user questions. And, to build on this, they're changing headings from things like learn more to what you can see and do at Mangungu. It's much more kind of user focused on those natural user questions. And instead of just visit this place, they're often explaining this place is significant because of its relationship to these people, these events, these locations, and this history. It's very specific. So, for example, this page, you can see content on how to get to the landmark, what you'll do there, where it is in relation to other landmarks, and a date of interest. And the content locates you in the space, and it creates a rich, unique story and a strong semantic graph, which we know that AI systems like this relational content. Another point is that content is specific and unique. So te reo is used to describe the iwi affiliations, place names, and rich Māori history. People's stories are told, and the places are given meaning rather than just using broad generic terms to describe the landmarks. So Tohu Whenua tells the story and the history of the landmark, and this creates content that is more distinctive and authoritative, less generic and harder for AI systems to substitute with a generic answer. Now, multimedia also strengthens authority, and Tohu Whenua has imagery, video, maps, stories, location context, and which makes the content more usable, more linkable, more shareable, more authoritative. So a key point is that AI can't summarize videos and often presents them in responses and AI summaries. And Google also has a new AI search, a new search tab, sorry, just for general Google search, where you can see video results. So videos, if appropriate for your organization, are a really good way to create resilient content. Also, promotion matters. So they're actively promoting their content in social media and have other relevant websites sending people to their website. So of course, this adds to traffic increases, but also good marketing increasingly supports AI visibility because AI engines gauge authority based on your brand references across different platforms. It's looking at the entire ecosystem and seeing, oh, these people are mentioning you, these people are talking about you, and taking that into account. Like I said before, Google says that content that is well optimized for search engines will be well optimized for AI. And to be honest, I'm seeing traffic increases at the moment come from that SEO, come from that traditional search engine, from looking at the whole landscape of your particular website or your online content and finding opportunities. And this kind of plays into this term that I've just seen, which is total search. We're not just focused on AI or SEO. We're focused on total search wherever people are looking for, which I quite like. So tohu whenua content lends itself naturally to a lot of the optimization techniques we discussed, of course. So bringing places to life with rich storytelling and inspiring to people to visit. But for a lot of organizations, including government, AI will naturally summarize content and website traffic will be lost. When people need a quick answer to a question or to find out what they need to do to follow government regulations or claim entitlements or just get something done, AI summaries can provide the best user experience. We don't need a video to answer a quick question on an entitlement. We don't want for government processes. We might enjoy a real life case study so we can understand the process, but we don't need rich storytelling. It's probably not quite appropriate. So this is a question I want to pose to kind of the large information-driven or kind of practical information-driven websites is that do we keep using sessions as a key performance indicator? So a 2025 study by the Pew Research Center found that there are roughly 50% fewer clicks to websites when an AI overview was present. So clicks to websites are dropping, and that's Google, but other AI engines aren't sending much traffic to websites yet either. There was an update for ChatGPT in May, where they made the links to websites more visible in their responses. I've seen a bit of an increase in some websites, but not all, and it's still not a huge amount of traffic. So that could change, but I think the natural way is that we are going to be losing traffic. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as the information in AI summaries is accurate and complete. So, and also, on a side note, if government agencies stop using traffic as a measure of worth, it could help solve a big government findability problem. When agencies try to compete for sessions, we get multiple websites covering the same information and contradictions and confusion in search. And if agencies only publish the content they own and work together to create coherent user journeys, they could improve the findability of government content. So that's something I'd like, I only see, I don't have a consistent view across government, but just based on what I've seen, I just wonder if that could be quite a useful thing. But so, that leaves us with the difficult question. So, what do we measure? And as I mentioned before, unfortunately, the picture is a little blurry at the moment, and it is likely to stay so. So, if you have clear conversions like form submissions, purchases, and contacts, you have clear measures. But of course, it's harder to measure the success of flat content, of pure information. So we're going to look at, there are some signals we can get about performance in AI. And so in terms of how do we measure AI visibility, like when they're not clicking through to our websites, but we might be appearing in AI summaries. Now you can do manual tests in different AI engines, which, prompt testing, which I like because you can see where your content sits in relation to content from other organizations. You can understand the wider ecosystem. There are also paid SEO or GEO or AIO tools which can track AI visibility. However, these tools are costly and still just provide an indication of performance. So Google recommends that you use Search Console for Google AI overviews. And many of you will be seeing this graph. So here's an example of a Search Console account. And Search Console basically just shows you your performance in Google and Google search. Now, at the moment, it does show performance in AI overviews and Google AI overviews, but this is mixed in with all the other search performance. So at the moment, we can't separate AI performance from traditional search performance. However, there's a new report coming out. I think it's generative AI performance, which will isolate that AI performance, which is very exciting. But at the moment, we'll be seeing our performance. And so, what we can see here in this graph is people clicking through to our website. We can see that for this site, this is the blue line. This traffic is remaining quite consistent. But then we can see the purple line, and these are impressions. Now, impressions are when your URL appears in Google search. Now, it could be on the 20th page of search results. So it could be a little bit meaningless, but it could be in an AI overview or an AI summary. So these are where we're seeing some indication of good AI performance. If your impressions are going up, and you can actually dig in. Your Search Console account also shows the terms that people are searching for. So you can dig into what terms are driving those impressions and get a deeper understanding. Try them out yourselves. Of course, like I said, a lot of you will be seeing this blue line dropping, okay? But again, if you're seeing the purple line increasing, it could be a nice thing to show your organizations, show your senior management that, look, it's likely we're getting visibility in Google AI overviews. So yeah, so that's a little kind of demonstration, but how do we measure AI performance now? So as I said, we can't reliably track this, but we can get some helpful signals. So I talked about manual prompt tests in different AI engines. There's Search Console, which we just looked at, reveals AI overview searches, and we just compared Search Console clicks with impressions. And then you can also use filters in Search Console to see searches longer than 5 words and question-based searches. And of course, these are more likely to be from AI, or these are more likely to generate AI overviews. You can see AI traffic coming to your website in GA4. And Google GA4 are actually rolling out an AI assistant channel so we can see different AI sources grouped together. Currently, they're scattered across your acquisition reports. It's a bit hard to see the overview, but we will get this AI assistant channel. I've seen it in an account. But it doesn't show all AI traffic to your website. So other AI traffic could be coming through direct, just totally untracked or unassigned. It's an incomplete picture. We're just not getting the full picture, unfortunately. So, but it's a signal. You can use that to understand a bit more about your audience. But so yeah, ultimately use GA4 and Search Console as signals, not truth. And what I really advise people to do now is start tracking your ecosystem, your online ecosystem, not just your website. So no single platform shows the whole story anymore. We used to rely on our website, and yes, websites are still getting the majority of the traffic. They're still getting loads of traffic. I don't want to undermine that. But just to be prepared for this lack of performance data and maybe our website's getting less traffic, we need to, like I said, track Google search, AI overviews, user feedback, YouTube, social media, and especially things like call center and service outcomes. Your kind of more back end stuff that might not necessarily be user interactions that aren't necessarily completed on the website to get a sense of where your performance is at and kind of identify where it could be going wrong. So just as an example of this is Tohu Whenua. This is the Search Console report for Tohu Whenua. I think it's for over 16 months. And what I've done here is I've used a filter to filter for question searches. Sorry, no, I think it's to filter for queries 5 words or longer, which of course are more likely to be from AI overviews. We can see here in the blue that the total clicks are low, but the total impressions are high, so we're getting we're getting visibility in search. We can't tell if it's in AI overviews or the search results, but it's there. And then we can see the actual terms that are being searched, which is really it's very useful. And we can see that Tereo, detailed locations, and natural questions feature, which is what I said, some of the things that we were looking at before in the content that makes it resilient. So you can see how your own website is performing in this way as well. So now I'm going to take us to more website performance. I've just spent a whole lot of time saying that to look wider, but we do still need to understand our website performance. It's really important, and we need to keep up with this changing environment. So I'm going to talk a bit about some practical ways to use GA4. Um, and your page performance matters more than ever. So Google has been, of course, sending people to deep level pages for a long time. And AI only amplifies this trend. People are, of course, bypassing the homepage. So this is a case study for Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment. And we looked at GA4 insights for the building performance site, which informs New Zealanders about the regulations they need to follow in building projects. Now, like most large content-driven websites, we found that most people came straight to deep level pages from Google. And we looked at the performance of the top 2 pages. Now, I know it'd be really nice to just open up GA4 and see this page is performing well, tick, this page is performing badly. But unfortunately, it really depends on the purpose of the page. You need to create a kind of check how the page was designed and hypothesis about how it's being used, and then check if people behaved as intended. So, for example, the first top page on this website is a browse page. So it's designed for people to find an onwards path. And if people leave the page quickly without scrolling, it doesn't matter. These little colorful boxes are links to different topics. And we checked the data and it showed that people were clicking on these links. Instead of exiting the site, they were actually finding an onwards path. So that shows a successful page. Now, just to note at the start of the chat, for this meetup, I've put a couple of links to tutorials, to video tutorials, quick ones that I've created, showing how to find this data in GA4, in case you're interested. And this is using the Path Exploration Report in GA4. Now, this is another top page on the Building Performance website, and this is a deep level content page. And the purpose of this page is to enable people to download PDFs and click out to information on external sites. And GA4 data showed that they were doing this in large numbers. And again, there's another little video tutorial to show you how to see the events that are triggered on each of your pages. Quite a useful thing for content performance. Your landing pages, the pages where people are starting their journey on your website are like mini home pages. And I really recommend to find out what they are and review them. Do they promote related content and a coherent user journey? Are people interacting with them in the way they've been designed? These landing pages, you can see this in the landing page report in GA4. So what this looks like in practice, use GA4 data to see whether pages are being used as intended. And if data is unclear, get a wider view. So this is a really good point. I know probably some of you are thinking, well, I have a lot of just flat content pages with no key interactions on them. I just want to know if people have read them and got the information they needed. That gets a bit trickier. So I think it was Lisa Reichelt that said, is it engagement or confusion? So you can see if they're spending a long time on the page, if they're visiting the page a lot of times, is that because they're getting what they need or because they're lost and they can't find what they need? And that's especially true for government where, they need this information. They're gonna stay there till they find it. So that gets a bit harder. It gets a bit harder to get that view of performance in GA4. So we need to get a wider view, like with user research, on-page feedback, call center data, on-site searches can be useful. So now we're going to go up in scale to measuring website performance. And this is also about tracking your ecosystem and includes some page performance examples. So it kind of covers everything. But we'll look at a gov.uk site level dashboard. Now, I really want to be wary about site level KPIs. I know it's really a lot of senior leadership teams want KPIs, and I know how frustrating it can be for content teams to provide these, which is why, we often turn to sessions. It's just that the problem is that these things are beyond our control. Like we've seen COVID, Google algorithm updates, AI overviews. It's very difficult to get kind of these measurable increases in amongst all this chaos. And I really encourage people, if they're having monitoring KPIs, to provide context and tell the story of your site performance. Show what's happening, what traffic sources are coming, sending traffic to your site, what are the top pages, because the user needs and the traffic sources will define performance. And so it's not just about these numbers. But in saying that, site level data is really useful for spotting changes and seeing the wider narrative. So I really like dashboards. We usually build dashboards on Data Studio, was Looker Studio. Firstly was Data Studio, so it's back to Data Studio now. But this one is a custom designed dashboard, and it's actually showing the progress of a project. It's not just all about the website. We were bringing different agencies onto gov.uk, and we can see those here, what status they're at. We can see products that we needed to implement to support these agencies. We can see the user. I love including user research quotes or feedback on a dashboard just to bring the data to life. So we've got that here and really illustrate the trends. Then we've got a little bit of GA4 data here, site search exits and visits or sessions. But the key things here are the contacts. And now these are on-page feedback forms that were on each page. Now citizens could give feedback and also government could give feedback. So we were getting feedback from these agencies whose content was being transitioned. And when one agency transitioned, we got a big spike in government contacts. And you can guess that they weren't applauding and saying how great the content was. They were complaining and they were saying this is not right. So this dashboard just allowed us it was a really clear picture, it allowed us to convince senior leadership to put more resource into finding out whether new content was working. We needed to review this content. It wasn't performing as intended. So how do I measure site performance? Well, dashboards really help you track your ecosystem, get that narrative in, and always include context with KPIs, tell the story. And also, just an additional point, dashboards tend to die if they're just sent out as an email every month. Even with the best trends, it's really good to talk about them and present them in the monthly meeting. Talk about trends in the meetings that you're in. Just get that data talked about. Now we're going to get on to audience insight, and understanding our audience behaviors is crucial to creating successful content. And here's a case study from RNZ, which is New Zealand's public multimedia broadcaster. And the goal was to bring people to the website. Okay, so our goals may be changing now. It's maybe a different landscape, but the work is the same, to meet user needs and reach our audience where they are. And so I just use this to show that this is the kind of work that it would be great if we could be doing to keep up with our audience. So come into RNZ, and they thought the RNZ website audience was loyal, engaged, older, and frequently visited the website because they had that data on their radio listening audience. They thought it was the same audience. The reality was that 70% of website users were young and news hungry, and they only visited one page, so they bounced off the site. So this changed the whole digital strategy. RNZ reduced homepage efforts. They'd previously been having to spend a lot of time on the homepage because everyone in the organization had wanted their content there. And they were able to say, look, people aren't actually, not everyone is visiting the homepage. I think it was about 20% at the time were actually visiting the homepage. So we could say instead, let's optimize for Google. That's where we're getting our traffic. Let's actively create content that's optimized. And so I gave training and we added title tags to each page. We implemented AMP, which was a specific news feature for Google, and Google traffic increased. Now, I said this audience bounced. They just visited one page and then they left the site. So we thought, wow, can we make them explore and engage further with related links? There was already a related link section, but we put them right in the middle of content. Um, so we did a test. It didn't work very well. This audience just were blinkered. They were coming in from Google, like looking at weather reports, or they were coming in from their iPhone news screen, looking at a particular news story, and then they were going back to their iPhone news screen. You can't necessarily change your audience. You do have to operate with them as they want to use your content. And we gave the teams the tools they needed to monitor performance. So they didn't have much time and they needed a quick view on the most meaningful data. So we gave them simple dashboards and different ones for each teams. They had different, we even got an external tool for the news team, but this one was for each radio program and it just gave a really clear view for that program content, the traffic sources leading people there, the devices, the top pages, the top content, audio, what was working from social, and it just allowed them to see what channels were working so they could promote their content through the right channels and most importantly stop wasting time on what wasn't working. And I think that's really where data can really help. So that's a high level case study, but now I'm going to get back to a more practical GA4 tip that you can use yourself. So we'll go back to the Ministry for Business, Innovation and Employment and look at audiences for the Building Performance website. So GA4 comparison filters are really useful. You can apply them to each of the standard reports in GA4 and they allow you to compare different audiences in a high level view. So really quickly, these audience pictures emerged. We filtered for mobile users versus desktop users. For mobile users, they were Googling high-level queries like building code and building act. They were more likely to visit on weekends, and the top site that people were coming from was Trade Tested, which of course is a trade store. And this gave us this picture of kind of DIY people like thinking, oh, in the weekend I need to build a fence for my pool and looking at the trade online at the trade store and saying, oh, there's regulations around that and clicking through it, kind of just a quick look using these filters started forming a picture, which of course needs to be validated, but it's quite a useful exercise. Now, for desktop, usage spiked on weekdays. They were more likely to Google acronyms like EDZBC and E2, which indicate an existing knowledge of the content. So these people were using the website to do their job. They're architects, they're building professionals. And you start to understand the different user needs of your audiences when you do this kind of analysis. So yeah, let's look at meaningful engagement, GA4 and beyond. So just to kind of reiterate, many teams feel like they're losing visibility over what's working, and in some ways we are. As we've seen, people are getting answers without ever visiting a website, and increasing privacy measures mean that we can't see a lot of the traffic our websites do receive. So I just pose the question, should we think twice about using sessions as a measure of worth, and can that free us up a bit? Um, and also, we will get better performance data. As I said, there's a new AI traffic channel coming in GA4. There's a generative AI report section coming in Search Console. And other AI engines like ChatGPT and Perplexity should provide data when they start providing paid ads. So we're seeing that they're going to have to provide some data in some context, hopefully for organic performance as well. But it still won't give a complete picture. So yeah, to get a sense of performance, we need to understand our audiences and how they engage with content across an ecosystem, which means bringing together data from different places, your website, user feedback, search, social media, service data, call center, whatever's available. And the future isn't about tracking every step, it's about understanding enough of the system to make better decisions. Now, I just want to, after saying that the ecosystem is the main thing, I want to just make a little note about the new GA4 AI Advisor. So this is a new AI tool within GA4. You might have seen this or you might not. It's being rolled out, and so it's quite new. And it's you can check in your own account by clicking on your main search at the top of your account, and you might see a little Ask Advisor thing come up here, like a search. And this is the AI tool. Now, it should save time, and because it quickly gathers data from a range of different reports. You ask a question just like any AI tool, and it uses your data. It looks at your data. It's useful for understanding content performance, and it researches broader industry trends. So it uses your data and it can go out further, beyond on the web. Um, and so yeah, for content performance, it can be really useful. Shows you things like what content topics you should offer, like by understanding user demand outside your website and how the content on your website is performing. So I'd really suggest you have a try with this. It also is really good for analyzing spikes, bringing together all the reasons why your content might have spiked on one day, traffic sources, pages, devices, location. However, it is like an incomplete jigsaw puzzle. You can't see the whole picture. For example, in my account, it misinterpreted my newsletter sign up event and gave me a false insight because of my account. It's this, your setup needs to be pretty solid. And when I asked about the top engaged page, it presented a page which I knew only had one view as a kind of golden standard. So you can see you need to understand GA4 as a language to make better data-driven decisions and know enough to check that insights are true in the reporting. But yeah, quite exciting. I'd recommend you have a go with that. So the three takeaways from the talk: AI optimization isn't a replacement for SEO and content design. It's an evolution of these, and you can start to see your performance and maybe where you are performing for AI in your Search Console account. Use data to evolve with your audience. It's really important we keep in touch with our audience at the moment and see what's changing. And track your digital ecosystem to understand the wider story. So I hope you enjoyed that talk. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I follow all the SEO, AIO, GA4 blogs so that you don't have to, and just share the insights that will be useful to for content-driven sites. And I've been developing a series of workshops to help content teams make sense of performance using their own Search Console and GA4 data. So if that's something you'd like to explore, come and have a chat afterwards or join my newsletter for updates on my website. And I'm also happy to chat about workshops, dashboards, and advisory support and implementation. But thank you everyone so much. And I look forward to answering some questions if anyone has any.